Good morning, everyone, and welcome back again with us. We're here at Talking Business. I am Stephanie Van Bark, and I'm a small business owner. So before the show started, my next guest, I was having the best conversation, so I hope we can recreate it because it was definitely a powerful introduction to how not just the concept of entrepreneurship, but the internal trust and faith in being an entrepreneur. So I'll let her speak to that. Welcome, Nzingah Oniwosan.
Hi, so glad to be here, Stephanie.
Thank you for joining me. And as I mentioned right before the show, she was actually giving me morsels of knowledge that I had to write down on my book. It's like, okay, so we're really gonna have to get into some scoop here. We'll start with, who are you and what do you do?
So my name is Nzingah Oniwosan. I'm a Haitian American holistic health consultant and coach. I am a multidisciplinary artist and a serial social entrepreneur. And I've been an entrepreneur full-time for the past 15 years. And I have a few businesses that I've grown and built over the past 15 years.
Okay, so I think I did a little research on you, and the three businesses are, you tell me if I'm correct. Yes, Baby, I Like It Raw, which
Correct.
is a blog services for health and wellness, raw foods, yoga, meditation, correct?
Correct.
There's Sankofo's Child.
Sankofa's Child.
Which is an art and healing experience where you use art and as a discipline to help heal and support youth and adults.
Correct.
And then there's Impact Hub Port-au-Prince, which is a co-working space in Haiti, correct?
Correct. You got it.
I was good, right? That's good, right? So my question for you, and I think I asked this earlier, how do you do this? How do you manage this throughout the day? That's 3 businesses, 2 continents, maybe even more. I mean, how do you do that? Or 2 countries?
Schedule, and just setting a time to work on everything I need throughout the day. But the beautiful thing is, because I'm an entrepreneur, I really get to dictate my schedule. Mm-hmm. So also, as an entrepreneur, you realize that your businesses have ebbs and flows. So there are sometimes that my business, one business is really booming, while the other business is kind of like in its, I call it the dead zone. But like particularly with Sankofa's Child, I do a lot of work in the school system. So typically, right after summer, they don't have someone like myself come in. So between August and October, that's a dead zone for me. That's the time I get to rest. The summertime is peak, actually, as well as Black History Month.
Okay.
But then, Yes, Baby, I Like It Raw. It's got its own flow. A lot of times it's contracts with brands, because I do work as an influencer. I do seasonal detoxes. So I'm able to sort of like decide what the focus is going to be for the day, the week, or the month.
Okay.
And same thing for Impact Hub Port-au-Prince. The co-working space has its own needs. I have a team, so we're able to divvy up the work. And then we have certain programs where I might be lead, and that's where I have a lot more work to do.
So you tapped on teams, and that's very key. I think, can you share a little bit about how you've come to identify your team and how you and your team have been able to work out the levels of responsibility, especially during this time where a lot of what we're doing is in a virtual space?
So, I'm not going to say that I have it all worked out.
Why not? You're on the show.
So, I think part of it is I'm type A, and I'm very, what people say, I'm very talented. I'm skilled across a lot of areas. And because of that, it's just easy for me to do something and get it right. Or that's the story I used to tell myself. Then to delineate and say like, hey, I need you to take care of this and take care of that. Because my type A person is like, I need you to take take care of this within this time frame? And why are you working so slow? So like I've had to create more compassion. I brought on a virtual assistant to help me micromanage everything, because actually COVID has been very good to me. And so the workload has multiplied a bit. With respect to my co-working space, we co-founded the co-working space together. So we're always working on the strengths and weaknesses of each other. So like where someone is strong, then that person works in that area where someone may need support and things like that. And it also just depends on what we're doing. So for instance, we were fortunate to receive funding from the US Embassy to do a program for women entrepreneurs. And we knew it was really important that those women saw a woman in that space, right? And so in that case, I took lead, because I also know that there are nuances that men won't account for in terms of entrepreneurship for women, right? We're confronted with gender bias, you know,
managing the home,
being caretakers, as well as, you know, what do we say? A sexism and inappropriate conversations, right? That we have to negotiate. And it's different also in terms of like what I'm dealing with specifically in the country that I'm doing this work in. So, so it's a balancing act. And I will say that what's helped me through the years, if I'm honest, is I've been single without children. So I don't, you know, like I think I would have had to take on more support had I had a family that I was raising at that time. And so now that I'm wanting to have those things, I'm trying to outfit a system that works so that my business can still run while I'm trying to have a family and be really hands-on as a mother and potentially a wife.
Okay. The hub in Port-au-Prince, I'm very intrigued by the idea that small business, you know, we know in predominantly African and African-American communities, small business is actually at the anchor of our communities, and that's no matter what country you're in. How does small business really impact and play a unique and important role in a place like Haiti?
If it wasn't for the woman in the marketplace or the farmer or things like that, I feel like the ecosystem would not be able to be what it is. I think what's really, and a lot of the people who are running the businesses are women, but they don't have the support that they need for them to be successful in that business. So a lot of times we say when you work for someone, you're working paycheck to paycheck. And a lot of times as an entrepreneur, or you might be working contract to contract or day by day, depending on what the business is.
Right.
So I think the challenges that we're confronted with specifically in Haiti is civil unrest, you know, the issues we have with our economy, you know, and people not being able to necessarily afford some of the things that our entrepreneurs are bringing to the market. And so a lot of the work that we're doing at our space is trying to support them to jump into the global market. So then they're making money, but then they can bring that money back into the country in their daily activities. You know, like, yes, I am selling this thing to a global market, but then that money is being rotated within the community that I live and exist in. Because our biggest thing is we don't want us to continue to live on aid, because it handicaps us and puts us in a precarious situation. Because when you take out loans, there are asks with loans, and a lot of those asks in terms of like IMF and all these other global funding institutions are at their advantage for their respective countries or their institutions, and at our disadvantage. And which is why we see a lot of our countries in the Caribbean as well as Africa being in a state of duress economically, because we've taken out these loans that we shouldn't have, because we felt like we needed to in order for us to just make it to the next day. So we have countries that are living paycheck, quote unquote, paycheck to paycheck as well.
And they're also buying up, they go in, buy up a lot of the properties and a lot of the assets, and now rent it back to the property. I know that's happening.
I mean, it's such an issue. I mean, like, or like one of the worst deals that they make us have is we take out the loan and we're forced to import their products into our countries. So that dismantles our farming systems. And when the farmers are not making money, then they're not going to grow as much. And so then we're forced to import more goods. And then, we're not exporting the same amount of goods that we should as well.
And you're double dipping. You're getting money from the consumer and you're getting money from the loan. So how are you ever supposed to be relieved when
and that's why we see this vicious cycle in these countries where they've made these horrible deals because like if I'm going into like global African diasporic economics, we don't have a global system in place where we can say no, don't do that deal, we got you, here's some money, and here's a low interest rate, and get yourself together, And so like one of the things I am like really, I have a lot of chagrin around is like most recently, Haiti's been having conversations with places like China and Taiwan, in terms of like, hey, we need an infrastructure for electricity and all these things. And they're like, yeah, we'll bring those in. But we know, because we've seen that model in West Africa, is they'll give you a loan to build out your electricity or whatever it is. But then they'll say, you have to bring our workers in. You're not even
hiring people, and they're going to charge you for the electricity. Again, that's a double dip. I got to pay you interest rates on the loan, and you're going to charge me for. It's not like the government will end up with it
ends up being a lose-lose, because you're not building the country, and you're not building the people in the country. And so a lot of times we blame presidents and we say that they're inadequate, they're not doing what they need to do, when in reality this has been something that's been happening for so long, and then just inheriting the system. And when they try to challenge it, then what happens is you see a coup d'etat or a kidnapping where they're taken out, because outside forces need to have that
this is my money.
They need to have those systems in place.
Exactly. So yeah, it's a large undertaking, but I feel like we're really primed for it now, especially when you're talking about all African and communities, even in this country, because the conversations have come to light, and because there's been sort of this disruption in the methods that that have been implemented, or at least it's come to light. So the question becomes, what will we do with it? Like, how will we really set ourselves up to be systemically prepared for these opportunities that may or may not come to bear? So, or make our own. So, I guess there's a lot. There's a lot. So I guess let's go back to our normal working day. So we talked a little bit about, as entrepreneurs, I think we kind of, before the show, we were talking a little bit about how you set your pricing, how you set your value, what is your target market. How have you, over the 15 years, because, I've learned recently a lot about how impactful the health and wellness industry has become. It's $4.2 trillion business. How have you been able to really set a value for yourself, really infiltrate the industry in a way that helps to generate revenue for your company? And what has your target market been?
So, lots have changed over the past 15 years. And I was fortunate to have some really good mentors along the way. And so one of the biggest things that I learned was do market research. And I don't think enough people do market research. They release a product or they release a service and they don't know what the value of that service is. And because oftentimes they lack self-esteem and they don't understand their self-worth and what the value of what they're giving as a product or service, they'll underprice it. And that undermines the whole industry when you do that. So when I first started doing my work in the health and wellness industry, I asked what the rates were, and I knew I was a novice. And so I knew I couldn't necessarily charge the rate that my teacher, who was a world-renowned person, could, but he helped me create a rate that made sense, like an entry rate. And so I think a lot of people need to find out what the entry rate is. And then as you increase your skills, as you see more clients, as you get more certifications, then you can start to increase your price. And that might be very small or it might be very big. It just all depends, you know?
Okay.
So like I often don't, until literally this year, I tested it out because I know that people like associations and clout. I've worked with celebrities for a long time, but I've never put that on my resume. So then when I put that on, people don't question my price anymore, you know?
It gives you all of a sudden credibility.
You know, and I'm like, celebrities are
been doing this for 15 years.
Celebrities are people who are normal like us. Their taste buds are not more refined than ours, you know? They have the same struggles we have, but because they got some screen time, all of a sudden their opinion has more value. I'm going to leave that alone. Right? But with more experience, I can say I've been doing this for 15 years. I've gotten awards over the past 15 years, and those things give you more value. I think the challenge is you got to stick to your price. And I always say this to my students that I work with in Haiti, or people I have conversations with in terms of business. Don't undersell yourself. If someone can't afford you, there's someone else who can, you know? And as I was saying to you prior to this, usually the person that you offer the discount to is going to be the most stressful customer or client that you will have. They can't afford you, but they want 5-star service. And very likely they still won't pay you on time. I mean, I'm literally thinking of a contract where I was like, okay, you can't afford me. I'm going to take X amount off because I really want to do this work in the community. And if you have a space, and I say this, if you have a community or a passion place where you want to do work, you do the lead on it. I mean, I do have a monthly quota where I'm like, one thing a month that I might do for free, but it can't be a majority of your work you're giving out a discount. And things like that, you know, so it could be a free class that you offer and then you can write that off, or you can get someone to sponsor it so that it can be free. And so then you're still able to pay your bills, because if you're giving things at a discount, that means on the back end, you are not going to be able to provide for yourself. You know, and I think that's another conversation that people need to have, because with entrepreneurship, we never, and this is something that I do in our entrepreneurship programs in Haiti that I don't see enough here in America, is we don't do enough self-development in terms of confidence and value and breaking the boundaries that we have because of trauma that we experience, or the fact that we live in a country that sees us as lesser than, which is why we're uncomfortable with making prices. And what we do is a lot of gold plating, which is something I have been guilty of. And gold plating means that, you know, you give way more services than you should at a price point.
Based on the money you got, because you think it's going to be your foot in the door.
Yeah. And so, like, for instance, I write grants, and I'll write a grant and it'll be like, I'm going to do this 3-month-long program, and someone will come in and do like, I'm doing a 1-day program. We both still get the same amount. Because the grant is X amount of dollars, right? And so, like, exactly. So, like, I had to say to myself, wait, I'm doing way too much, because I don't feel if I do just this, people will see the value, when in actuality, they will. And I think that's something that people of color struggle a lot with, because of our shared experience, how we were raised, how we're seen in our communities. We often struggle with that. And so we add so much on when that should have been like, well, if you want this, that's an additional X amount of dollars, you know? And so, like, what's your baseline product? How much is that cost? And when you add on these extras, what do those extras cost? And that's something that takes time it becomes refined over time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not cut and dry. Like, I didn't get to this place overnight. Literally, I've been challenged by this for the past 15 years, which is why it's something I'm really passionate about, because I am notorious a gold plater. I did a cooking class. I'm giving health advice. You know, they come in, and the woman who does pricing for company was like, I would have paid you 3 times more for what you did today.
Did you feel insulted a little bit?
No, because she was like, I respect you and I love you. I'm going to hire you for more work, but you're doing too much for too little.
Wow.
You know, and so she's helped me, you know, understand my value.
So,
of course. And I remember, so like, to give some context, when I became an entrepreneur, I was 24 years old.
Right.
So, you know,
you were trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so much wisdom with age.
Absolutely. Once you get a little older and you realize you can't eat and pay your mortgage, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, when you're living at home, it's like, oh, la la. All I'm worried about is my next trip.
Because you ain't buying nothing for real anyway. But when
exactly.
It's money, and you like, what I do. So talk a little bit about it. And I think we tapped on this too. And I said that's probably one of the things I'm challenged with. What does that mean to the market? When you have people that are willing to way undercut the product itself. And I think we also talked about, especially in circumstances like a business like yours, may not have the wealth of knowledge that you've had to acquire, may not have the level of experience that you have, may not have done this for the length of time. What does that do for the market
it undermines the market, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you set prices that aren't true to the market, then it makes those of us who charge the appropriate amount, it makes it hard for us to get contracts. It makes people question our prices because you've created a price that isn't true. Mm-hmm. And then we're being asked to do more work for less money. Right. So that's why it's really important. I feel like if you're going into a new industry, that you find mentors and people who can, you know, speak to you about their journey so that you can understand what the market value is, right? Okay. Because very rarely at this juncture are you going to create an industry or product that hasn't been done yet. So there's someone there who can mentor you and offer you information that you might not be able to find over YouTube and stuff like that. Because reality is a lot of these articles that we find online, very rarely are they really giving you true information. And you want to speak to, there is nothing like practical experience, right? What they teach you at school and the reality of being an entrepreneur is two different things. Correct. And so you want to have a conversation with someone that you can have a real conversation with, not these people who are selling you entrepreneurship, making it seem like it's easy breezy cover girl, because it is not. You know, I've had contracts that it took them 6 months to pay me, you know, and I had to learn that you have to have multiple streams of income and you need to learn the cycles of your industry. So like I was saying before, that first year I became an entrepreneur. I was only focused on being a teaching artist. And like that summer I was making, basically that summer I was making $2,000 to $3,000 a week.
Wow. That's really, that's actually very impressive.
Then I went to my dead zone and was just like,
nothing. So I didn't think about saving that.
What happened here? You know, and I was spending money. And when I say $2,000 to $3,000 a week, that really wasn't $2,000 to $3,000 a week because I wasn't accounting for the supplies that I had to pay for or the transportation. And these are all things, especially when you're super young, you don't think about those things. So like when I started doing my profit loss chart, it was like, oh yeah, I brought in X amount of dollars, but this is really what I took home. Right. And I should have been saving. I should have been saving for my dead zone so I wouldn't be worried, but I didn't. And so when I got into my dead zone, I was freaking out because I was just like, it's been 2 months. I still haven't had a contract. What's going on? And so this is why you want to talk to someone who's been in it for at least 5 years. Right. Not someone, because there's a lot of people who are online selling courses and anyone can start a business, but not everyone can keep a business.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I had Eric Knowles and Carol Ann Taylor, one's from the Greater Miami Chamber, the others from GMCBB on the board, and a business owner. And I asked them, can everybody be an entrepreneur? And there was such a fast reaction. No.
They hearted.
They were like, if you aren't prepared to miss a paycheck, this is not the game for you. Because there may be many.
I had a contract where it got with a company that got shot down by the FBI. They owed me 3 months' work. I am never going to see that money. Okay.
Did you ever get that money?
I'm never going to see that money. He's been the owner of the company. They're changing laws in the state of Florida because of him. And he's been sentenced to 30 years in jail. I'm never going to get that money.
Oh my God. That's why. Was that recent?
This was about 3 years ago. And I literally went to my contract that day because it was a yoga contract. And I went to teach yoga that day. And I didn't have my glasses on. I was like, why are all those people there with the same clothes? Come to find out, it was the FBI. It was like the movie, to be quite honest. But I mean, like, I would have never expected that.
And they
were like, did you know that these things were happening here? I was like, no, I just come here and I teach yoga.
I teach yoga. I don't want to testify.
It's my name. I'm like nervous, and I was like, and what was really bad was the FBI agent was talking to me and I was like, yeah, they owe me some money. And they were like, you should have been better with getting your payments. I was insisting and they were like giving me the runaround where I was literally coming in that day to say, like, if I don't leave with my money, I'm not coming back.
And there's nothing to come back to.
You don't hear these stories online. You don't hear these stories. Everyone's like, yeah, I got a jet. I'm taking all these trips. No one talks about like, I
didn't get paid last week.
I didn't get paid from this particular contract for X amount of time. And God, thank you that I didn't expand the contract because they wanted me to start doing cooking lessons with their patients. And I was about to do that, but I was like, well, we need to establish rhythm with this payment situation because, but like, that's not what you're seeing online. Everything is hunky dory. Overnight you start making five figures monthly. And that's not
how this rolls. That's not how
for every month that they might be making 5 figures, there's probably another month where they make 0.
Exactly. The ebbs and flows aren't quite going the way they're supposed to go. So you got to work. And I'm in a household with 2 entrepreneurs. My husband and I both are entrepreneurs. So he's much better at it than I am. But I'm like, there are days and I'm like, we gonna be all right. Especially when the pandemic hit. When the pandemic hit, we were both like, what are we doing? What are we doing? So was that the worst experience you've ever had?
I mean, I think that's probably the worst in terms of like, I'm having a conversation with an FBI agent right now, and I'm finding out that this was a prostitution ring and a drug ring.
That is the worst. You are not kidding. I'm going to tell you that's the worst. How do you come back from that? I can tell people took that off your capability statement.
Yeah, so, and I'm never going to see that money that they owe me.
Absolutely. Wow. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to laugh, but I
can laugh now, but like at the moment I was like, what's going on?
Right. Oh my God. That's okay. So you have learned here today. Please get your money as quickly as you can. So You talked a little bit earlier, this was before the show, about LinkedIn is one of your marketing tools. Of course, social media is a big way that people are investing in their marketing. I question, I think you and I talked a little bit about, are you doing this for followers? Are you doing this as a conversion to sales? How are you really utilizing social media? If you could share a little bit about which of those platforms have really worked for you and how you came to that knowledge.
I would say, like, what came to mind, and I want to say it before I lose it, is the biggest faux pas that I see people doing is these follow chains that you see in the groups where it's like, hey, follow my Instagram. You don't want someone who doesn't see the value of your service or your product just randomly following you so you can say you have X amount of followers. Right. It would be better to have 2,000 people who are following you because they believe in your product and they're purchasing your product than to have 10,000 people who have just liked you because you've done all these follow chains and you gathered people who are in the same situation as you. They're trying to sell a product too, and they're not going to engage with your product. In my case, I do work as an influencer. I don't want people who aren't going to engage with my work because I get paid based on engagement.
Right.
In terms of social media, I would say I've had success across all platforms because I have some engagement strategies that I've used across platforms that work pretty well, as long as I stay consistent. So the first thing is consistency.
Right, exactly. You got to be in there.
And so consistency could look like, I'm going to post every other day, or it could look like I'm going to post every day. I always tell people who I have conversations about social media, don't commit to something that you can't do. And so I always also say that people sleep on LinkedIn, right? Because LinkedIn, that everyone on LinkedIn has a job and they work. They're professionals. So whatever you're offering, there's someone on there who who can afford it. And because it's not a place where they see a lot of advertising or products and services, then you're going to stick out in the midst of people talking about their successes in terms of their businesses. Whereas a place like Facebook and Instagram, you're competing with a lot of ads, a lot of sponsored posts, and a lot of people aren't going on there looking for services or products. They're looking to be entertained. No one goes on LinkedIn to be entertained.
Right, that's true. They're serious about their commitment. There are no cute. I said before, there are no cute kitties.
Yeah, and then you also know that you're not potentially throwing a post to a kid who doesn't have the capability to afford your product. I was telling you off air that I ran an ad on Facebook at the time. Instagram wasn't even a thing. I ran an ad on Facebook, somewhere else, in LinkedIn, and my LinkedIn ad did 100 times better than all those other ads. And the people emailed me, they asked questions. It blew my mind. And that was how it shifted my perspective on LinkedIn. And that was 2008 when I made that note. Here we are 12 years later, and LinkedIn has done so much more to keep more people on their platform. Now you can do lives on there. If you want to do a live there, I say do a live on your YouTube channel or do a live on LinkedIn.
Right. Okay.
You can do some lives on Instagram, but the algorithms are crazy. And I would also say what's also worked for me, or the biggest lesson I learned, is don't keep people on a social media platform. Bring them to your platform, because then you can stay constantly engaged with them. We focus on building followers, but we don't focus on building our email list. We don't focus on getting phone numbers. And all it takes is an algorithm to show up. Because I had with my jewelry line at the time, like 2009, 2010, I had 7,000 followers for my jewelry line. Then Facebook introduced algorithms.
Okay.
The engagement that I had before, gone, because they want you to pay to play. Oh, you have all these followers? Guess what you need to do? You need to pay for some advertisement. And it wasn't an issue for me because before that became the it, because they went public. And they have to be accountable to the people who bought shares.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, you know, but I was paying for ads before that. But for me to now lose the opportunity to engage with my audience because they change things, because they have to be accountable to their shareholders, totally disrupted my business with my online presence, because no longer were people seeing my posts. And I didn't have the mindset like I have now. Like, oh no, I need to create ways to get people on my website, to get people on my email list, so that, you know, they live with me. They don't live on social media.
Right.
You need to make your website sticky. You need to have blog posts, maybe a podcast, something where people know where to find you outside of these social platforms. And I think that's where a lot of people get lost, is they focus on building they help Facebook, which is basically Instagram now, build their platform, and you're not building your own platform.
Correct. Exactly. I agree with that 100%.
You know, I don't believe in keeping my groups on Facebook. You know why? At any time, I might get kicked off of Facebook. Now I no longer have access to my group.
Yes. Yeah. So how do you, when you create a group and you've got an audience, a following, how often do you try to engage them to now draw you? And in what ways are you drawing them back to you?
So like with my detox, I was doing it on WhatsApp. But I in that way I have those numbers, you know, they have my number, they stay in contact with me. I also do prior to COVID, I was doing events where people could come and engage with me a bit more, and they would bring someone else. I am currently creating an app so that people can live on my app like they live on Facebook and social media. And you can create your own social network. It's so easy now with things like Mighty Networks, where you bring people on and you can make it free or you can charge. You know, it's really up to you. So like, it's better for you to create your own social network where people, you know, your people are there, than just depend on Facebook to decide whether or not they're going to let the algorithms work today and someone sees your post.
I agree.
You know, and again, don't sleep on your email list. You know, like
I agree. I say that all the time.
Don't sleep on your email list. The other day I sent an email and I worded it so well. I've never had this type of like engagement. 96 people in that email list opened up that email. And I was like, whoa.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
You're more likely
a direct audience, and they've connected with you in a situation where it was probably face to face versus sort of this around the world. I'm just going to click on this because they got something cute on the page.
And so, you know, one of the ways, if you're using social media to build your audience outside of social media, is create a free offering on your website that they will have to provide you with an email for them to download it. And that's so easy now. You can use things like mail, and use a service like MailChimp. Some people use Constant Contact to help you manage your emails, because then like you can do more targeting marketing with those email lists. Like if they click this, then you send this email. If they click that, they don't. And you can have that sign up list on your website, you know, but you're losing so many opportunities to actually get people's information. Put a pop-up on there, give them a 10% discount. It won't hurt you. Most of my clients are the people who purchase from me, end up purchasing from me over and over again. And they're the ones who actually get me more clients, to be quite honest. You know, like where like, I really love Nzingah. Nzingah's work for me. You should go with Nzingah too, you know? So you should also provide great services, you know, don't necessarily gold plate, but meet their expectations, because you know, you don't want, no one goes online to praise you, but everyone goes online to take you out. You know, like when you go online to look at Yelp and all these things, most of the comments that you see are from people who are upset, you know, and that's another way that you can engage people, is if someone like loved your services, give them a larger discount for them to write a good review, you know, on your website.
Because people pay attention to Yelp. They do.
Yes.
They do pay attention to Yelp. You're right. And I definitely go on there for customer service. I want to ask you, I want to go back a little bit with the value aspect. if you have a customer or a new client, say I'm a new client that wants to utilize your services, and I'm trying to compare you to someone that's a little cheaper, what is the conversation you typically have in that scenario?
I'm not only the president, I'm a client. I mean, like, for those of you who are young, that was the selling point for Hair Club for Men, which happened to be the last job that I had.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I worked for Hair Club for Men. I think one of the values, the market values that I have is that I am not, because there's a lot of people selling things that they're not actually doing. I live this lifestyle. What I'm selling is something that I actually use to heal myself. So when they hear my story, that gives them a different opinion on things. You know, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor when I was a child, and polycystic ovary syndrome, as well as an autoimmune disorder. And I was told I need to be on medication for the rest of my life in order to thrive. And 19 years ago, I decided to change my lifestyle, and I wanted to be hands-on with my healing process. And I knew that what they were saying to me had to be different. Right. And so I have 19 years of just doing my wellness work and 15 years doing it with other people, you know, and most people can't beat me when it comes to that, you know, and I have also a great team of people that I can reference you to. So I think that's another space that a lot of people, they get so caught up on trying to keep everyone to them. But when a client knows that, you know, your capacity and, you know, like, you know, this is my lane and zone of genius, and I know someone who can support you in this other aspect that you need a product for, a service for, then they start to respect you a little bit more, because they know that you truly want to help them and you're not just a dollar sign.
Right.
You know, other things that help me, like I have a lot of certifications, but, you know, I think part of the reason I got a lot of certifications is because I knew, like, imposter syndrome, you know, so I don't necessarily.
I just want to show you I'm not an imposter.
I wouldn't say you need to get 50 zillion certifications, but I think that continuing your education is very important, because in that way you'll be able to stay sharp. What was trending wellness wise when I started this journey 19 years ago has changed a lot. It's so funny because when I started my wellness journey, no one knew about Savvy, and Savvy was one of the first people I went to see how I could heal myself. Now everyone's talking about Savvy, but because a lot of people who are talking about Savvy now don't know the 19-year journey of witnessing how Savvy has journeyed, a lot of people think that everything he says is gold, when there have been moments that Savvy has made contradictions and had to retract what he said. But that's a whole different conversation, you know? So like in the wellness field, I always tell people, if the person you're working with is not empowering you to be your own healer, then that's not the person you should work with, because the biggest compass you have is your body, and your body will tell you what works for it and what doesn't work for it. And when it comes to wellness, there is no one size fits all. There is no one miracle herb or pill that works for everybody. We are different on a genetic and cellular level. And that means that what works for someone might not work for the other. They might be allergic to it. And when we get into this wellness, holistic medicine thing, sometimes people don't have these kinds of conversations. And so like, they don't even think like, wait, someone might be allergic to it. Maybe I should do a patch test or a small entry before I say, you need to do this and you need to do that. And I think that what's helped me as well, which makes me stand out from other people, is I have a strong science background. I majored in neuroscience and I was going to be a doctor, and I shifted, you know? And so I believe there's a place where those two things can sit, because there's things I can't see as a holistic practitioner that modern medicine allows me to see, you know, and there's doctors that I feel work. I mean, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't the help for certain doctors, you know. So what doctors can I work with who will respect my holistic practice and help me navigate the ebbs and flows of that? And so I think that's another place where that makes me stand out, because I have a strong science background. You can throw that information from your doctor. And I'll say, that sounds good. I'm not going to contradict your doctor. Maybe you should ask your doctor this. How do you feel?
Right.
And then this has been my journey. When I went vegan, I told my doctor, and my doctor was like, based on what you have going on, I feel like that might be a really good option for you.
Right. Okay.
And so,
so it was a nice synergetic relationship where they trusted what the science trusted the holistic trusted the science.
And so in my field, I feel like you should have a synergistic relationship. If your holistic practitioner is telling you that modern medicine is completely trash, I don't think that's the person you should be dealing with, right? Because let me say why. So when your arm gets broke, you gonna put sea moss on your broken arm?
No, I am not. I'm sorry. Somebody needs to knock me out.
So like there's a place where they can sit. You just need, and if your holistic practitioner doesn't have a team of people that they're working with, and who's their healer? Who are they working with? How are they healing? Right? Are they just doing this work, and who's their support team? You don't want someone who's not doing the work for themselves. And I think that's the biggest thing across all things. Like this person selling your product that they wouldn't take. What does that say?
I agree.
What does that say? Because there's a lot of people who have restaurants who wouldn't eat at their restaurant.
Home food. Yeah, I agree. So why are you eating that? Maybe not.
I agree. I mean, like, I think experience is really important, and just having, and know that the person who you're working with, particularly when it comes to wellness, be it modern medicine or holistic practices, take into account that they're at your service and they need to be listening to you. And I think that's where, and they should be okay with saying, I don't know. If you're dealing with someone who never says, I don't know, then that may be someone that you need to question,
Exactly. So you've said 2020 has been a good year for you, which is ironic because it's the pandemic. I'll ask first, were you able to acquire some of the grants and loans that were available, or did you even apply?
I didn't apply.
Okay, you didn't even apply. And did you need to? Good. I mean, that's awesome. That's really good. So how has it been the year? If you could, delve a little bit more into that. And have you had to make some changes in how you operate over the year that will stay, that are here temporarily, that have added to and enhanced the fact that your business has grown so much during this year?
Part of the reason why my business has grown so much is because I've been planting seeds for a long time. And I think that's where a lot of people fall short, is they expect to blow up overnight. And when they don't see things come into fruition within the time frame that they expect, then they give up too soon, right? Like, so a pineapple, for instance, is a papaya. You can get a fruit in like 6 months. A pineapple, it takes you 2 years. And so because I've been talking about health and wellness for so long, that led to me growing my audience by 16,000.
Oh, okay.
Because then people are like, oh, you want to learn something? Go to Nzingah. You want to do? Yes, baby, I like it raw. And we know that she's not new to this. She's true to this because she's been doing all of this activations and posts and blog posts way before the pandemic hit. And a lot of people started to try to be holistic practitioners, or I see a lot of CMOS dealers now who didn't even know what CMOS was last year. But let me just be quiet.
We'll talk about those people later.
Yeah. And so one of the ways I had to pivot, particularly with the work, I was in the middle of a big contract. I was at a preschool with 7 classrooms doing professional development of teachers. And so what we had to do in the middle when the country shut down is we had to go virtual, and I had to be comfortable with going virtual. I started to offer my yoga classes online. And I had to be comfortable with that. And these are things that I intended to do, but I wanted it to be perfect. Right. And a lot of times people don't need you to be perfect. They need you to show up and offer what you offer. And then you can refine it over time. Other things that I've been able to do, I mean, like my detox program has always been virtual. So just more people were jumping on it because they realized that, you know, maybe I need to take a little bit more, bring a little bit more attention to my health. I think the biggest thing that's going to happen for me this year is I've been wanting to release an app, and the pandemic and quarantine has offered me the time to actually invest in my app as well as build it out. So that's going to be released in a couple of weeks.
Very good.
And so it allowed me, I feel like it's the perfect time because more people are open to wellness from a virtual space.
I agree. And I think they're even looking for it and seeking it. I know I have a friend who's also an entrepreneur, and we talk all the time about how one thing as a person we are starting to recognize is this sort of need to have a real life, a whole life. And so it does make you start to really look at what's out there to make you eat better, take better care of yourself, exercise. You really, you know, what are those methods of keeping yourself sane? Basically, at the end of the day. Because as an entrepreneur, you can get very quickly into every minute and moment.
And that's my app is for women who are running businesses and who want to do well. Like, and so be clear on who your target market is. I think the biggest thing for people this year is they had to be able to pivot. And I don't think a lot of people pivot. And I think a lot of people try to pivot too quickly. So before I started to do anything virtually, I was just watching what people were doing. I was watching how they were failing, how they were tumbling. And, you know, we talked about faith. I was just like, at first I was like, oh, snap, my money's about to good. And then my little voice was like,
it'll be all right.
I got you.
It'll be all right. Just wait. I got you.
Chill out.
See, that's what I'm working on right now. I'm trying to get there.
You know, because we're constantly, so this is me and my woo-woo. We are constantly manifesting, right? But whenever we talk about manifestation, we're always talking about manifestation from the positive things that we attract to our lives. But a lot of the negative things that happen to us are things that we've manifested as well, because it's the seeds you water that grow. If you stay in a space of fear and you feel like you'll never have enough, then that's what you're going to project into your life. If you stay in a place where, you know, I know that I will be provided for, and you're in, I say this, it's with action, right? So like, you can't be like mantra and positive affirmations all day and not be doing anything towards the thing that you're trying to attract.
If I'm telling you for that,
you know, I could say like, yeah, you know, the universe is going to provide, but if I didn't get off my butt and started to figure out how to do online classes, then the universe was never going to provide. And I think also taking quick classes helped me pivot, because I knew I wanted to do online classes, but I didn't want to do them in the way that I was seeing it, where I've seen people teaching 5 classes in one day. And I was just like, nah, that is not what I'm about to do, right? And so I took a class and someone showed me how to be able to have my online offerings in such a way where it was manageable and I was able to bring in income. So I think that's, again, don't pivot too fast, you know, do research, figure out the best way that works for you. Because what works for someone else might not work for you, because everyone has different circumstances, and then apply that. And it's never too late. Like in whatever industry you're in right now, like people are more open to a virtual space. So in a lot of ways, I've been able to do a lot more in a global sense than I had before, because no one wants me to come to their space anymore. So how do you take advantage of that?
Exactly. Because I did say your industry, health and wellness, exercise, hopped immediately on this online platform and really changed the game, I think, for many industries, because you were one of the first to do it. So it's going to be very interesting to see how, once we get out of this pandemic, how this has become so ingrained in our world, how you're able to blend the two experiences.
So what I've been seeing is a lot of hybrids where people are teaching live classes where people come and they have a limited number. Like did this actually like the other day. I taught a dance class. And there were people who came to the dance class and then everyone else was virtual.
Okay. Okay. And so that creates, and it's interesting because it creates an extra level of revenue that you never expected from people all over the world in many cases. So, well, okay. Thank you so very much. We had a couple of people, Tracy. Hi, Ramona. That's my best friend. Hi. And Aisha, who all very much appreciate what we were saying. I think many of them probably will put the information in their arsenal for as they move forward as entrepreneurs as well. Before we go, how can we connect with you? How can we reach you?
Sure. You can find me at yesbabyilikeItraw.com. That's my main wellness site. On Instagram, it's Yes Baby I Like It Raw. I'm also Sankofa's Child. I'm releasing a new website as well. That's going to be I Am Nzingah. But if you go to Yes Baby I Like It Raw and sign up for the email list, you'll get that information. And you also get the information for my app, which is releasing for my 40th. So.
Thank you so much. This has been a very fun conversation. I'll definitely be in touch. We are actually doing a happy hour on Friday, so I hope you'll join us, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that offline. Thank you again. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. This was a powerful information, a bit of information, especially when we get into that aspect around worth and value and setting your price and trusting that the universe is going to bring you what you're asking for, and really understanding how your impact impacts the industry, or your valuing pricing impacts the industry. So thank you again for joining us. On Thursday, we're back here at 10 o'clock. We'll be talking to Jasmine Bernie Golds from Equal Ground. She's going to talk to us a little bit about, as many of you know, it's election time. And there's a lot of conversation around civic unrest. There's a lot of conversation around civic engagement, the business of politics and civic engagement. And that's going to be a very, very powerful conversation as we go into November 3rd. So I look forward to seeing you at 10 o'clock on Thursday. Thank you again and have a great day.